Carrying light forward, reflection, renewal, and faith as the year turns. Welcome back to Sipping on Wellness. I'm so glad you're here today. This episode is releasing on December 30th, that quiet stretch of time that doesn't quite feel like the old year anymore, but doesn't yet feel like the new one either. The celebrations have mostly passed, the pace has slowed, and for many of us, there's a strange mix of emotions lingering beneath the surface. You might be feeling reflective, or tired, or hopeful, but unsure how to hold that hope gently. This episode is for that space, not to push you towards resolutions, not to analyze every moment of the past year, not to rush you into becoming a new version of yourself overnight, but to pause, to breathe, to acknowledge where you are, honestly and without judgment. There's something sacred about this in-between moment. It's a threshold, a doorway, a pause that invites us to notice what we're carrying and what we might be ready to loosen our grip. And I think we often miss the gift of this moment because the world tells us we should already be planning, deciding, fixing, and striving. Today we're doing something different. We're creating a little space, a faith-filled pause between years, where reflection is gentle, hope is quiet, and forward movement doesn't feel forced. Scripture tells us in Ecclesiastes that for everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven. And if that's true, and I believe it is, then this moment matters too. The not yet, the almost, the standing between. So wherever you're listening, maybe on a walk, in your kitchen, curled up on the couch, or driving, I invite you to let your shoulders soften just a bit. Let your breath deepen. You don't need to do anything right now. You don't need to decide anything. You don't need to have clarity. You're allowed to simply be here. In the next few minutes, we'll reflect on what it means to close one year with grace, to honor what was without carrying it all forward, and to look forward to 2026, not with pressure, but with trust, faith, and a willingness to walk forward one gentle step. At a time. Let's begin there. There's something about this time of year that feels heavier than we expect. The calendar is almost turned, but life hasn't magically reset. Decorations may still be up or already packed away. The noise of December has quieted, but what's left behind is often a swirl of thoughts we didn't have time to notice before. The space between years tends to surface everything we tucked away while we were busy. Unfinished conversations, moments we wish had gone differently, gratitude mixed with grief, hope sitting right beside disappointment. And that can feel uncomfortable, especially in a culture that treats December 31st like a finish line and January 1st like a clean slate. The truth is, most of us don't cross into a new year neatly, wrapped up and emotionally organized. We arrive carrying pieces of what came before. That doesn't mean we failed. It means we're human. Faith gives us a different way to understand this moment. Scripture doesn't rush transitions. It honors process. Seasons change gradually, often quietly, long before we see visible results. Winter doesn't apologize for being slower. It doesn't rush towards spring. It simply does the deep work it was created to do. And I think we're invited to do the same. This pause between years isn't meant to pressure you into evaluating every decision or fixing every weakness. It's an invitation to acknowledge what the year held without judgment and to recognize that growth doesn't always look like progress on paper. Some of the most meaningful work God does in us happens in the unseen spaces, the moments where we stop striving, the moments when we sit honestly with what is, the moments when we admit we don't fully know what's next, and we trust anyway. If this past year stretched you, if it softened you, if it exhausted you, if it changed you in ways you're still trying to understand, you're not behind. You're right where you're meant to be, standing in a doorway, not rushing through it, but noticing what you're carrying with you. And before we talk about what's ahead, it matters to gently honor what was. One of the hardest things for us to accept is that God's timing rarely matches our internal clock. We live by calendars and deadlines. We measure progress by productivity, milestones, and visible outcomes. But Scripture tells us a different story about how growth actually unfolds. God works in seasons, not sprints. Ecclesiastes reminds us that there is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. Not a rush, not a checklist, a season. That matters here. In this quiet stretch between years, because when we look back and feel like something is unfinished, or we look ahead and feel uncertain, it's often because we're trying to force clarity before the season has fully matured. Winter is not designed for harvesting. It's designed for strengthening what can't yet be seen. Roots grow deeper, systems stabilize, foundations settle. If our faith lives, this often looks like trust without answers, obedience without certainty, stillness without reassurance. And that can feel uncomfortable, especially if you're someone who likes direction, structure, or a plan. But throughout Scripture, we see God doing his most faithful work in waiting spaces. Abraham waited for years for the promise to unfold. David was anointed king long before he ever stepped into that role. Mary carried the weight of calling before anyone else could see what God was doing. None of them rushed the process. None of them fully understood the timeline, and none of them were forgotten in the waiting. This space between years is not empty. It's active. It's just quieter. And faith in this season doesn't require you to declare bold resolutions or spiritual goals. Sometimes faith looks like staying present, like continuing to show up, like trusting that God is still at work, even when you don't feel particularly inspired or energized. If you've been asking, am I doing enough? Or should I be further along by now? This season gently answers back, you are becoming, and becoming is not rushed. As the year comes to a close, there's often an unspoken pressure to evaluate everything. What went right, what went wrong, what you should have done differently, what you wish you could change. Reflection can be healthy, but only when it's paired with grace, because there's a difference between learning from a season and living stuck inside it. Many of us carry the year forward like a heavy bag we never set down. We replay conversations. We rehash decisions. We measure ourselves against expectations we may not have even chosen for ourselves. And slowly, reflection turns into self-judgment. But Scripture invites us into a different posture. Isaiah speaks of God doing a new thing, not because the past didn't matter, but because it doesn't get the final word. The message is never erase what was. It's release what no longer needs to be carried. Release doesn't mean denial. It doesn't mean pretending something didn't hurt. It doesn't mean minimizing loss, disappointment, or struggle. It means acknowledging what was real and trusting that God is not finished with the story. There are lessons that deserve to come with you into the new year. There are strengths you didn't know you had. There are moments of faithfulness that mattered even if no one else saw them. And there are also things you never meant to drag forward. Unrealistic expectations, lingering guilt, shame over choices made with limited information, pressure to make up for lost time. Jesus' invitation is always gentle. Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Not come with your performance review, not come once you figured it out, just come. This is a sacred moment to loosen your grip, not because the year was perfect, but because God's mercy is. If you feel the weight of unfinished business, unmet goals, or unresolved emotions, you don't have to force closure. Some things close quietly over time. Others are surrendered rather than solved. And that, too, is faithful. As we stand on the edge of a new year, it's tempting to rush forward. New goals, new habits, new versions of ourselves. The world loves a fresh start that feels loud and decisive. Vision boards, declarations, resolutions that promise transformation overnight, but the invitation of faith is quieter and far more compassionate. God doesn't ask you to reinvent yourself on January 1st. He invites you to continue walking. Scripture reminds us that His mercies are new every morning, not just once a year, not only when we feel motivated, and not dependent on how well we perform the day before. Newness in God's economy is steady and sustaining, not demanding. As you look ahead, you don't need a perfectly mapped out plan. You don't need clarity on every next step. You don't need to know exactly how the coming year will unfold. What you do need is presence, a willingness to show up, imperfect, honest, open, a readiness to listen instead of striving, a heart that stays soft even when life feels uncertain. The new year isn't a test to pass, it's a continuation of a relationship. Faith, wellness, growth, these aren't destinations you arrive at. They're rhythms you return to again and again. Sometimes you move forward with confidence, other times you pause. Sometimes you feel strong, other times you simply remain, and all of it counts. If this year taught you anything, it's likely that strength doesn't always look like pushing harder. Often it looks like staying grounded, choosing rest, allowing yourself to be held by God when you don't have the energy to hold everything together on your own. As you step in what's next, may you do so without urgency, without comparison, without pressure to prove anything, just with trust. Before we close, if this space where faith and wellness meet has been meaningful for you, I'd love for you to subscribe to the podcast and stay connected. As we head into the new year, I'll be sharing more about a Bible study and a faith-centered wellness challenge, both designed to support steady, sustainable growth, not pressure or perfection. Thank you for being here and walking with me this season. And as always, thank you for being here, for listening, for reflecting, and for choosing to walk this journey gently. So until next time, stay nourished, stay cozy, and choose wellness one gentle pause at a time.